Welcome back to the show, my friends. I am your host, Eric Szilagyi. If you've had an uncomfortable experience and you'd like to have it shared here on the show, please get a hold of me at contact.uncomfortable@gmail.com. The world wants to hear your cryptid and UFO experiences. So reach out to me and let's get yours on the next episode of Uncomfortable. If you haven't yet, make sure to like us on Facebook and Instagram, both at Uncomfortable Podcast 65. And once you've had a chance to listen to an episode or two, please make an effort. Leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you can. That alone is the one most important thing you can do to help get the show out in front of more people. And with more people listening, that means more great experiences coming your way. If video is more your thing, then make sure to subscribe to Uncomfortable Podcast on YouTube, where you can get the video version of most shows, like tonight's. If that's where you listen to us, please make sure to click like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you are notified with each and every new release. Take a minute and check out the Uncomfortable link tree. It's a single best place that you can find anything and everything uncomfortable all in one spot. The link for that is in the show notes below. All right, guys, I'm really glad you're here for this one because today we're going to go deep into the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, but from a whole new angle. My guest tonight is John Gertz. He is a former chair of the SETI board and author of Reinventing SETI. John's not just rethinking how we search for intelligent life, he's challenging the core assumption behind it. We're going to talk about aliens, probably not beaming radio signals from across the galaxy, but might be instead sending some long-range robotic probes, possibly already here. We're going to get into whether or not humanity should even broadcast our presence. Who should represent the Earth if contact ever happens? And how close we really are to becoming an interstellar species ourselves. I think it's going to be a good, smart, speculative conversation, but ultimately grounded in real science. The kind of conversation I think you guys are going to love, and something else to ponder if you've ever looked up at the night sky and wondered if someone or something might be looking back. So if you're ready, let's get into it. So if you will, please give a warm, uncomfortable welcome to Mr. John Gertz. John, thank you for being on the show tonight.
And Eric, thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Very interesting stuff. As we were talking just before we started recording, I got a chance to do more than just peruse through some of the information that your publicist had provided. Very interesting stuff. I wonder, because like where I anticipate this conversation going, I wonder what that does, because you admitted you're not necessarily a UFO guy. You're not a flying saucer guy.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
But the two are nonetheless related, or we think they are. As the group of people like myself, we think they're related. They must be related, right? But you make some interesting points. It's like, I can't tell you how many times I've heard with some of the louder voices in the UFO UAP conversation, where they move in a way that defies our abilities. Their speeds exceed things that I've heard multiple people say, if there was a human being in that craft, they would be jello because of the rate of speed and how they move and the abrupt 90-degree changes, and
forces would crush them.
Yeah, so it makes sense when I read your theories that there's a high probability that those are not manned craft.
That's right. Well, first of all, let me start by indicating that as you mentioned, I'm not a UFO person. I'm not a UAP person. I come from an entirely different perspective. I come from the vantage point of astronomy, and astronomy begins where the atmosphere ends, and consequently, UFOs and UAPs are not in our wheelhouse. But as a SETI theorist, I've come to the considered opinion that the way we've been doing SETI is all wrong. We assume that ET is sending signals from its own home planetary system, when in fact, for a variety of reasons, I hope we have a chance to get into some of them today. Um, ET's best strategy is not to send signals from its own planetary system, but rather to send robotic craft to our solar system, in which case they're here now. And even though I am not a UFO person, remarkably, I've come to a similar conclusion and buttress, I guess, the people that do believe in UFOs. Even though I personally am a UFO skeptic, I don't really believe very deeply in the reports that I've seen.
It's fascinating though, how, and you're not the only one. I mean, there are plenty of people who are out there that are skeptical about all kinds of things, whether or not Kennedy's assassination was a setup or whether it was real, or, I mean, there are skeptics when it comes to just about anything. And I appreciate skepticism, but I also appreciate skepticism with an ability to look at something and say, I don't believe this, but I can see your point, and I can see that there are a lot of things that point towards this being a possibility. Um, and I guess what I'm trying to draw into here is, with the since the 1940s, when Roswell, New Mexico, blew up and became a part of pop culture, essentially. Um, we've all heard of, little green men or aliens, the grays, the tall grays, the Nordics, the whites, all these different classifications of extraterrestrial that apparently are having interactions with people here on this planet. Um, and that's one frame to look through.
Well, if you look at Roswell for a second, 1947, I believe. Since then, if I count correctly, there have been 14 presidential administrations. Um, the idea that there were spacecraft that landed or crashed in Roswell and that it's been kept under ice by 14 separate uh, administrations, presumably generations of bureaucrats, hundreds or thousands of people would have had to have been in the know. Not one of them made a deathbed confession. Not one of them leaked anything to the New York Times. And as far as presidents, I mean, Bill Clinton ran breathlessly before the cameras with a little microbe that he thought was in a rock from Mars. And Donald Trump, you love him or you hate him, I don't care, but I think we can all agree that Donald Trump wouldn't keep that secret. So I don't buy the conspiracy angles. I don't buy there's a big government conspiracy.
Boy, to keep that many people quiet, but I mean, the argument can be made that they haven't been kept quiet. In light of recent years, with the congressional hearings, the pilots, the whistleblowers, all these people that have been going in front of Congress and testifying to these things being in our sky and causing issues with training missions and stuff like that. Um, I think the bottom line is there is something in our air that we're either drastically mistaking, or there is something there that we just don't know what the hell it is. And if that's the case, where I would love to be able to just sit here in my blue skied world and say, well, obviously they've got to be aliens. I mean, how else would they, but it makes complete sense that that the notion of probes, or as in part of what I read of yours, nodes, to be cast out and indiscriminately looking for whether it's signals or um, sensors that would indicate the possibility of rudimentary or life as we know it.
Yeah, I mean, let's look. The very first ET civilization could have arisen about 8 or 9 billion years ago. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. It took about a billion years before the first rocky planets were formed. But thereafter, you're only looking at the evolution of possible life and how long it takes to evolve into technological competence. If it's like Earth, another 4 or 5 billion years. Okay, so that brings us to 8 or 9 billion years ago. That's a long time ago. The first ET civilizations are that old and
It's unfathomable.
unimaginably more advanced than ourselves. Now, they would send probes to visit the rest of the galaxy, to explore, for situational awareness, to see what else is out there. They likely found out about us right after our planet was formed. And probably sent probes here for the last 4.55 billion years since our planet formed. Um,
So to jump in on that, you don't think that our rise to nuclear superiority, our rise to holding nuclear power in our hands, has anything to do with their discovery of us?
no. If you believe that if what you're trying to say is that there's a coincidence between the explosion of the bomb in Hiroshima and the first report of UFOs at Roswell in 1947, no, I don't draw that connection. For one thing, I don't believe that Roswell was anything more than a weather balloon or something. But but apart from that, there is something called the speed of light. So even if they have a very, very powerful telescope that could have seen the Hiroshima explosion, uh, they would still not know about us for however many years as as equated into distance. So if they were 100 light years away from us, so if their nearest civilization, it would take them 100 years to find out about it. And then to send a probe to us after that would take until thousands of years. So I don't believe that they sent probes in reaction to our nuclear knowledge, but they've been here probably since they probably knew that we were technological back when we were building pyramids, or the advent of agriculture. Certainly, they've known we've been biological for as long as we have been biological, and noted the first onset of oxygenation of our atmosphere, which implied multicellularity. They probably figured that out at least 2.5 billion years ago. So in all the time, they've been sending probes. And as a matter of fact, if we do find a probe in our solar system, there's a very strong likelihood it's going to be dead. That is to say, it's space junk. I don't know what the lifetime of a probe is, but they could have been sending hundreds or thousands of them over the years. Even if they paced them at only once every million years, they would certainly pile up, so that the ratio of space junk or dead probes in our solar system may be far, far higher than that of active or probes.
See the like the I guess you'd call it the fantastical side of what I hope. Uh, Ultimately, I hope that there is another life, and that we do get to encounter it, and it is um, benevolent, and it is open arms, and hey, how you doing? Glad your neighbor. I hope that's it.
Well, that may be us. Uh, you know, uh, it's entirely possible that those early probes seeded Earth with the very first bacteria, uh, and allowed it to evolve as it would, as it will, and that effectively, like a Johnny Appleseed, the first ETs that are much much older than us, pollinate or fertilize uh, or inseminate planets or infect planets, whichever adjective you prefer, as they are created.
Well, it was interesting because reading about your theory on the probes or nodes, that kind of took me down that rabbit hole as well. As you know, what if that was a lot of people refer to I believe it's panspermia.
That's right.
Um, so what if that was the methodology? What if these probes were loaded with the building blocks of life,
Mhm.
and as they went on their journey to find other life, where they found potential for life, they would deposit that biological matter to get things started.
Precisely so. I mean, there is still the great mystery, and it cuts either way. The great mystery of how it is that life began on planet Earth, almost from the very first instant that it could arise on planet Earth. The oldest life is it goes well. There it could be 3.7 billion years ago to 4.3 billion years ago. There's some uh, controversy, but certainly no later than 3.7 billion years ago did life start, which was right after the late heavy bombardment, the one that created all the craters on the moon that would have destroyed, presumably, or might have reputatively destroyed life before that. So the question is, how did life begin so rapidly in geological times, just in a snap of a finger? Well, either it was panspermia, intentionally planted here, or it's simply that life is very easy to get going. And if it's very easy to get going on Earth, it must be fairly ubiquitous in the galaxy and in the universe.
Well, it struck me going through pages from your document. Um, some of the photographs that have been taken by the Hubble and by the Kepler, and when you when you see these photos, and I know there's going to be some people out there who subscribe to well, they're representations, they're not actual pictures. A lot of people like to argue that stuff, but when you see just the vast, uncountable numbers of stars and realize that those are only the bright ones, it's mind-boggling to think of how many opportunities there are out there for other planets to sustain some kind of life. And I believe I have a spiritual belief, and I have I have a relationship, but to say that we are the only thing out there amongst all those is just, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Well, and to that point, the this our sun is actually a young star. 95% of all the stars that you look at out there are older than the sun, and consequently, uh, the opportunity for them to be more evolved than our life is very profound.
So when we're talking about these probes, the how realistic is it, the feasibility that these probes could be traveling the distance that they would have to in order to get here?
Right. Uh, you raise an excellent question, because human machines tend to break down after 100 years or something. We don't really have a lot of machines that last a lot longer than that. Um, but they are in interstellar space and they are shielded. Presumably, their technology is vastly superior to our own. They're not necessarily traveling at a very fast speed. It doesn't really matter to a probe or to the civilization that sends a probe to a young Earth whether it takes 10,000 years to arrive here or 10 million years to arrive here. It doesn't really matter. We're dealing in issues of deep time. Um, but I do grant you that there is a very significant issue as to how robust these probes are. And one of the arguments I make in my book is that we have negotiating power with ET. When ET comes here, I think there's a tendency to think that we're going to be judged, and I think we will be judged in some respects. But ET will be very hesitant to destroy us. I mean, they may be tempted to throw yellow police warning tape around Earth as a stay away. It's a wretched place. But at the bottom, they are going to need us because there is a galactic internet of these probes that communicate via communication probes, as I spell out in some great detail in my book. But but no one civilization can maintain this galactic internet. They ultimately, and that's our negotiating power, they'll need us to help maintain that the galactic internet in our quadrant or our particular small area of the galaxy. By manufacturing and launching the probes and using our telescopes, our transmitting telescopes, our big, huge radio transmitters like the Arecibo telescope, which is now defunct, would be an example of that, to transmit messages also across the galaxy. Um, but I do grant you that it is a deep concern. One of my other deep concerns is, if sending probes make a lot of sense from ET's point of view, because a probe can do science,
Right.
it can really explore. Whereas if they send messages from their own solar system, they get no information back unless and until a typical technological civilization arises and transmits something back to them. But here, a probe can actually do science long before a technological civilization arises. Sending signals from your own solar system could be dangerous. There may be some very, very bad actors in the galaxy, and by definition, when you send a signal from your own planet, you tell everybody where you are,
Right.
and it can be dangerous. You send a probe; the probe doesn't need to reveal the coordinates of its progenitor.
So if these things were designed to, let's say, hide or go undetected,
Mhm.
um, have you run into, or do you have some good theories on how we accidentally, or how what might give them away?
It's a good question. Um, well, so first of all, um, they may, of course, have stealth technology. A probe could be sitting on an asteroid somewhere, and be buried under the regolith, under the rock or rocks of the asteroid, just for protection from micrometeorites and from radiation and so forth. So it could be hiding just for self protection. Um, uh, but when you think about it, most asteroids, especially small asteroids, we don't know anything about them. All we know is they're points of light, and we don't actually know for a fact that they're asteroids and not probes. All we know is they reflect some light. We just assume that they're asteroids. So that they may just be in there.
Is
So
there any data that you know of that would indicate that these so-called probes have been tracked or have been able to be tracked for any amount of time?
Um, no, I mean, obviously, if now let's stay away from government conspiracies for the second.
Mhm.
But if um, but assuming that there's no government, cover up, we would know whether probes had been tracked. So, for example, satellites, and I'm not an expert in this field whatsoever, but there are, Lord knows how many satellites up there. Do we know what all of them are? It is possible, or is it possible, that a satellite that we assume is Chinese is, and the Chinese assume is ours, is actually, an alien probe? I don't know. Um,
That kind of makes my head wander a little bit. Have you ever heard of the Black Knight satellite?
no, I don't think so.
So it is something that's been in UFO lore for a long time, and it's apparently thought to have been around for thousands of years. It's a it's a very oddly shaped black, for lack of better color, um, chunk of metal, or so it would seem or looks to be, that has been in our uh, orbit around our Earth for a long time. And a lot of people seem to think that that is some sort of a probe or a sensor gathering information on our planet.
Well, there's so many military satellites that are not registered or unknown, and that are of human derivation. So this particular satellite, I have absolutely no idea. But the question is, where would ET be hanging out in our solar system, and why aren't they making themselves known to us? Well, I would posit or argue that they're not just saying, "Hey guys, we're here," because they're studying us. As advanced as their computers, their onboard computers may be, it probably will take a lot of time of uploading, old I Love Lucy episodes or YouTubes or whatever that they're studying in order to learn our. Well, I mean, they may be learning our language from Sesame Street, our maths from Khan Academy, all the rest of it is from YouTube. I don't know, but it takes a long time to decode us. Moreover, they may not have the onboard ability to deeply analyze us to the extent that they need to, and be porting data back to some home planet at an unknown distance from us,
Yeah.
or they may need permission to make contact with us. Uh, uh, and they may be seeking permission. That the probe may be seeking permission from its home base to do that. But once that permission is granted, that probe, which has now deeply analyzed us, might be communicating to us in the Queen's own English, or in Chinese, or in Urdu, or some other terrestrial language, because they have deeply studied us.
Do,
And to my mind, that's why they haven't revealed themselves yet. They're still in their surveillance phase.
are we as humanity, are we are we making any baby steps? Are we taking any steps forward to um, enter our hat into the whole idea of creating these nodes, for our species to try to assimilate data from other worlds? Are we doing that?
No, uh, emphatically not. Uh, I wish we were, but we are absolutely unprepared for the first day of contact. There's been no rigorous thinking by the innumerable fields of expertise that should be brought to bear upon this, everything from cryptology to behavioral biology to evolutionary biology, uh, to economics to military affairs, to diplomacy, and on and on. Linguistics, I can name a dozen more fields that should be involved in the planning for the day after contact. And perish the thought we should just leave it to astronomers like myself, this is, or to UFO enthusiasts like some of your audience. I mean, we've really got to bring a lot of expertise to bear on it. Moreover, we have to work in concert with the rest of the world. If the Chinese, let me say, I'm a SETI guy. Okay, our SETI data, and we've looked at roughly 1 million stars, and our data is wide open to the Chinese. Our raw data is there for them to analyze in any way they want. Um, they're running a very large SETI program also on the largest radio telescope in the world right now, or a single dish radio telescope in the world called FAST. The Chinese have it. It's about 50% larger than our Arecibo, which is now defunct. Um, you think their data is open to us? No, sirree. It is not. And let me say this: if one of their Chinese scientists uh, establishes contact, do you honestly believe they're going to share that information with us, or stamp it top secret and it'll be the last we ever hear of it?
Not a
Um,
chance.
so there needs to be an agreement with the Chinese and with the rest of the world, a treaty. And in my book, by the way, I draft a treaty. Uh, uh, in adopting and adapting some of the language from the Outer Space Treaty, as a potential first draft. But there needs to be thought given right now to what happens the day we make contact. Let me give you just if you bear with me, just give you a hypothetical for a second, or not a hypothetical. Let's say I'm wrong that ET is sending probes and not sending a signal from its own planet. Let's say we get a transmission, a la Contact, the movie Contact with Jodie Foster,
Yeah.
Carl Sagan as the author of that book. Let's say that signal arrives one day. Let me ask you this: should we respond? That's a simple question.
My thoughts?
Yeah, but should we respond to it?
My thoughts is, why would you tell anybody where you are unless you know who's on the other end of that phone?
But maybe they're pinging. Maybe ET is pinging. Listen, when we do SETI, we look at our stars one by one by one by one, and we look at them each for about 10 minutes. Maybe they're sending a signal to stars. Boom, 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 boom. 10 minutes here, there. Okay, and they're looking for a response. Now the question is, if they're looking for a response, maybe they're obviously want to meet us. They want us. They obviously it's an invitation to respond back to them. But should we? I mean, it's a simple question, yes or no, and the answer isn't obvious. Maybe this civilization is like a bat doing echolocation, trying to seek out prey to kill us or to do us great harm. Uh, or maybe they're going to give us a cornucopia of wisdom. I mean, which is it? Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that that I don't have the right to make that decision. That decision should be made by all of mankind. It's a fraught decision, and whether we decide to reply or not to reply is a decision we should all be making. But how? Through the UN Security Council, through the General Assembly, by 2/3 vote, 3/4 vote. Who knows? It's never been discussed. It's never been decided. And and what will we say? And who gets to decide what we say? And should we release the coordinates of which planet contacted us? Because if we release the coordinates, then everybody and their grandmother can send their own message. Kim Jong Un can send his message. The Scientologists can send their message. Whatever. So maybe that needs to be kept secret. Again, this is something that we should all think about, and think about it now before it happens.
Haven't we already done that to some extent? Haven't we
No.
launched? Um, Information that showed I believe it was the sequence of DNA, what a male and a female adult looks like, our placement in the solar system. Hasn't that stuff been like arbitrarily just thrown out into space with the hopes that somebody finds it?
Well, yes, it has, and very wrongfully so. one of it was Frank Drake, the father of SETI, who was a dear friend of mine, by the way, and a very, very lovely human being. But he sent a signal from Arecibo in 1974, I believe it was, or 77. Anyway, he sent it to uh, M, M, M13, the a globular cluster at a 27,000 light years distance. So that message won't even get there for another 27,000 years. And will have damped down to the point that it's incoherent, and moreover, he forgot to account for the proper motion of M13, so it's going to miss anyway. But
It's just going to
the
keep.
point that was an ill-advised move. He should not have done that. Because on whose authority did he do that? On his own say-so. That's all. None of the rest of us had any choice in the matter. He is. I mean, he confessed to me personally that he's sorry he did it. But anyway, so. But I'm sorry. Where are we?
Uh, I guess I was going to lead into sticking kind of with the idea of diplomacy and nations of the world having to work together to entertain this new guest, this new life form that we were going to run into. That was part of the episode that I did, is when I really started to delve deep into some of the things that you were talking about, as far as, I mean, it would affect everything, every aspect of life, from religion to politics to languages. And you would have to come up with a new group of linguists who were able to communicate and learn the languages, so that there would be a bridge between our language and theirs. Art, and every aspect of our daily lives could be dramatically impacted by contact with another intelligence.
Or not. It may be, if they don't surveil us, and this is one of the advantages of sending a probe. If they don't thoroughly surveil us, there's very little hope that we can meaningfully communicate. They may communicate in like bee-like waggle dances, or in cuttlefish-like color changes. Then or the things that we're interested in. My dog and I think we understand each other, I guess, to a little degree. But when I walk her and she's fixates on the smells of a bush for 5 minutes, and I can't drag her away from the bush because she's interested in, I'm not particularly interested in the very, nor can she communicate with me about the subtleties of the bouquet of male dog urine. Okay. Splashes of urine. It's what she cares about and what I care about are different things. Even if she could manage to somehow to communicate, about the glories of urine smells. Okay. Then there's the intelligent rift between us. I mean, if I met a member of my own species a million years ago, Homo habilis or Homo erectus or something. What would we talk about? He's not interested in Shakespeare. He has no way of understanding Shakespeare or Einstein, and I have no particular use for his stone scrapers. So what are we going to talk about? With ET, honestly, we have nothing to teach ET in terms of science, in my opinion. I mean, if we try to tell them that E equals MC squared, they're going to say, "Hey, man, we've heard that a million times before."
You're
That's all you got. But the only thing we do have of interest is our culture, our music, our literature, our books, our paintings. That's what's unique that we've got, our culture. And I'm not sure that they're going to be interested at all in that.
You think
So,
that'd be lost on them?
well, or they may not care. Do I care about their top 40 waggle dances?
Good point.
Um,
Good point.
so why should they care about our top 40 music? We don't know, but it may be that when they come here, it's not really to learn from us, but it may be to lay down the law. Um, that's what they really want to communicate with us about what the rules of the road are to live in a peaceful galaxy, and that law may come down to just a few words like "Don't come, stay still," or "You come, you die." Just the universal rule may be just stay where you are. You have no right to colonize. And then all the golden rule stuff and do unto others and all that doesn't goes away. If you don't have contact with anybody, you can't. It's pointless to talk about whether you should turn the other cheek or what it means to be compassionate or whatever. All that goes away.
So what are your thoughts? And this is going to sound goofy, and I guess I kind of mean it to be that way, but ultimately, I think it's a legitimate question. What do you think? Like let's call it a galactic federation. All right, I've heard that term used by other people. Do you think that there is a governing body, kind of like what you're talking about, that when you get to a certain point and then you warrant being visited, and that is primarily just stay in your system, don't go starting crap with this system, stay in your lane, do your thing, and don't be stupid. And then they just up and move on until they find the next ones that are ready to hear that message as well.
Well, they don't have to move on. They're everywhere simultaneously. Just as there are probes in our solar system, there are alien probes in every other solar system. There are probably alien probes around every star in the galaxy because they need each other to communicate. One point of physics is that it takes a very big transmitter to transmit to across interstellar distances, and and if you're not transmitting just to the next star and sort of as a relay station, you're going to have huge engineering problems building something that is that large. If it was that large, we probably would have found it already. If it was so large that it could transmit for 1,000 light years or something,
So,
we
like,
would, it would.
like our planet, our world, our streaming services, our radio towers, our CB radios, our what's the other ham radios, those are all putting signals out into the air, and they're being collected by antennas and cable systems and dish networks all over this planet. Um, they're being bounced off satellites and retransmitted to different parts of the world and all that. Are we sure? Are we sure that those signals that we're bouncing off of our satellites, our communication satellites, our entertainment satellites, Time Warner and all these other ones, are we sure that what we're sending them, those satellites, are they only getting to that point and then just dissipating, or are they continuing to broadcast beyond that? And does that not make us essentially a sitting duck for somebody who would be looking for that kind of?
No. So the answer to that is that those signals damp down with the inverse square, so that at twice the distance they're four times as weak. And if you extrapolate that outwards, any of those signals have damped down to complete incoherence. They just fade into the interstellar uh, uh, noise, essentially the cosmic microwave background or whatever, and at the range of the nearest star, Alpha Centauri. They're completely damped down, um, but large military radar. Arecibo, when it was used as a transmitter, was used sometimes as a transmitter to probe local asteroids. to try to determine what the orbital characteristics are of asteroids to see if they would impact Earth. It was a noble cause, but there was spillover, and whatever is in the background might have been illuminated by that, but by those signals, those radar signals sent by Arecibo. That's what Frank Drake sent when he sent to M13. He used the Arecibo radio transmitter as a radar to send a message. Um, but um, um, our normal signals are I Love Lucy kind of television signal would
Yeah.
dampen down to incoherence even at the nearest star system.
But how far is that? Like
The nearest,
if it damps down to the nearest star system, how far are we talking that signal is actually getting?
well, it goes uh, the signal goes forever. I mean, the signal will go in infinite distance in an infinite amount of time. I mean, but the point is, at what point does it rise above the noise so that the signal can be extracted from the noise? And the answer to that is not very far
Okay,
for radio and television broadcasts.
I got
Okay,
you.
normal radio, television, internet, so forth, telephone communications. It's not going to get to the. It's not going to be um, uh, detected even at the nearest star system, which is 4.2 light years away, which would be about 6 trillion miles, I think, something like that. No, I think it's 25 trillion miles. 25 billion miles. Sorry.
I want to shift this toward the weird a little bit, because if we're going to accept the your hypothesis on the node or probe, to me it kind of begs the question: could we already have seen something and just not recognized it? And I guess what I'm getting to by that is kind of a reference to Ave Loeb, with the past couple of years, Oumuamua. Um, very, very odd shape. Didn't seem like it was designed for interstellar travel. Um, made very outwardly weird eclipses around our system, and then kind of just jetted off almost seemingly under its own propulsion or under its own what's the word I'm looking for, under its own power. Um, you know, if the photos that I've seen are actual representations of what Oumuamua looked like through radio telescopes, that was a very strange. It doesn't have the typical characteristics of what you would expect a meteor or a comet. So, I mean,
Well, my own point of view, which is I'm sure shared by the preponderance of astronomers, is that it was a rock, an interesting rock, but a rock. Um, the evidence, against it being an artificial body, something alien, like an alien spacecraft, I think is very, very weak. Uh, it basically it it deviated by 1/10 of 1% around the sun from what would have been predicted to be its orbit according to Einstein's general theory of relativity. Well, Einstein's theory of relativity, general relativity, doesn't lend itself to approximation. So even 1/10 of 1% needs to be explained. But most astronomers believe that it was from outgassing, uh, that simply as it got close to the sun, gas was evaporated or off the surface or from under the surface, which changed its orbit by that slight amount. Um, I have a big problem feeling that this was anything but a rock for a number of other reasons as well. Um, if let's say Oumuamua came from Barnard's star, a very nearby star, the second nearest star to Earth, and was sweeping past our sun and then going directly to Alpha Centauri, I would pop the champagne bottle and say, "Woo, Eureka! We found ET."
Yeah.
By prima, but the chances of that sort of coincidence that it's coming from one nearby star system to us to the next nearby star system, the chances of that happening by coincidence are basically zero. Okay, I would say that was easy, but no, it was coming from the last time it entered a star system was millions of years ago. Um, and the next time it will enter another star system, according to its trajectory, is another millions of years from now. It's coming from nowhere in particular and going nowhere in particular. Okay, that to me is very strong evidence. It's going at a very slow speed for relative to what we would expect from an ET spacecraft. It's tumbling erratically. So if there are beings on board, they would be permanently sick. Okay, um, uh, it's to me and I don't know what pictures you're talking about, but it was only a couple of pixels. It was so far away by the
Yeah.
time it was discovered that even our best telescopes only got a couple of pixels on
Right.
it. Anybody can see.
What they want to see.
I think, yeah, a rule of thumb is the fewer the pixels, the bigger the blur, the more people are going to think it's alien
Yeah.
or Bigfoot or I don't know what, so it's sort of like an inverse rule there. The fuzzier the photograph, the more likely anybody can see whatever they want to believe in it. As far as its shape, it's roughly 10 times longer than it is wide. Big deal. So's Ultima Thule, which is a Kuiper object belt that New Horizon visited. I've got a picture of it in my book, Reinventing SETI. But as New Horizon approached it, it looked like a cigar shape, just like Oumuamua. But as you got close to it, you realized that it looks like a pancake, also like Oumuamua. Okay, but it was clearly two flattened rocks attached to each other. And there's no question that it's not an artificial body. It's just two asteroids stuck together. New Horizons got close enough to get a very good photo of it. But from afar and from a blur, you could see, it's the same sort of spacecraft as Oumuamua.
Right.
So sorry to disabuse people of that notion, but I'd like to stick to the evidence. The evidence is not strongly favor Avi Loeb's position.
It's very interesting to have conversations with people on both sides, because if you listen to Ave speak about it, he's very passionate in his defense of the possibility that that was something much further from the normal than what, looking at the way you speak about it, it got too close to the sun, it off gassed, that changed the orbit and the trajectory and possibly the speed for a very short span of time, and that accounts for the whole thing. So it's funny when you get into the conversations how different they can be just because of
Look, I know Avi very well. He's a very, very smart guy. I don't know a single astronomer who agrees with him on this, and many have looked at it.
yeah.
He's just out there on his own particular crusade, and almost all of us disagree with him.
Yeah.
Okay, believe me, I'd be the first one to, be happy if it were true. But I come from a field of serious astronomers, and we go where the evidence leads us.
Is there anything out there that you guys in the world of astronomy, is there anything out there that is, if not consistent, um, consistently odd? Is there anything out there that is producing things that are making you take notice and continue to track because there is no understanding for it?
Yeah. and this is whenever we come across new phenomena, um, some of us like to believe that we should be, seriously entertaining the prospect that it could be alien. I remember when pulsars were first discovered, the two scientists that astronomers who first found the pulsars named them LGMs, little green men, intentionally because they were really seriously thinking that this might be ET. But they kept that thought to themselves, and they continued their observations of this, and they found another pulsar, and eventually they determined um, that 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 it was basically a neutron star. The pulsar was a physical phenomenon, and they disabused themselves of the notion that it could be an alien signal. Similarly, whenever there's a new astronomical phenomena, we do look at it and take seriously. I remember some years ago, a leading SETI astronomer came to my office breathlessly. I live in Berkeley, California. This astronomer also was in Berkeley. Came into my office, said he had to see me urgently, and to inform me of a new star that had been discovered that was dimming by 22%, and it was discovered in the Kepler field. And that 22% diminution of light is phenomenal. Um, uh, Jupiter would only dim the sun's light if seen edge on by 1%, not 22%. And moreover, it was dimming it in a different pattern. So that one time it would be 22%, another 5%, and so forth. Um, I only asked one question of this astronomer, which sort of settled the matter for me. I asked, "What is the periodicity of this object?" Because the thought was that there must be some huge Dyson sphere, an artificial object orbiting the some other star.
Right. That's
Uh,
what I was
and,
gonna
and his response settled the matter for me. He said, "There is no periodicity." And that makes no sense to me. An object has to be in orbit. If it's not in orbit, it would basically plunge into the star. Um, well, today that's now known as Tabby star after the astronomer who discovered it, Tabitha, whose last name is escaping me at the moment. Um, and Tabby star is no longer thought to be an alien phenomenon. Most astronomers think that it's a cloud or a dust cloud or a hydrogen cloud somewhere in the foreground, and maybe not associated at all with the star. It's just by accident, in the same line of sight.
Yeah.
But it's still a mystery. Honestly, I don't think there's any definitive proof yet. So that's another example. Fast radio bursts currently are considered candidates for being some of them of being of alien derivation. Some of them seem to be associated with magnetars, a certain type of pulsar, but some of them are so complex or complex enough that they don't seem to belong to be generated by a magnetar. So it's an open question for the moment.
What about the wow signal? Is
Yeah.
there has there been more made of that than should have been, or is that
No, I think that's an interesting signal. My own point of view on that. First of all, it's a misnomer to think that we've gone back and looked at it a lot. We haven't. There have been, from time to time, some telescopes have pointed in that direction, but there's been no systematic long-term study of that field of view. And it was a larger field of view. It's not. It was unfortunately not a point source that you could associate with a single star, but it was a larger field of view. My own point of view on that is that it really could have been a local probe, because what we don't know it's pointless to go back to that same field of view if it's a probe in orbit around the sun. Uh, you know, uh, it wouldn't be in the same spot anymore. It would be somewhere else in its orbit. Maybe it's a. I would ask the question: what asteroids were in that field of view at that particular point of time? I think it was again in 1977 in Ohio. Um, uh, and no one's done that study. I've asked the question in my book, but to my knowledge, nobody's answered it.
Let's get to your book.
Oh, wait, just let me say one thing about the wow signal
Sure.
also.
Yeah.
One of my chief gripes against the traditional way of doing SETI is it's always done with one telescope. Properly done, it should be done with two telescopes. If two telescopes were looking at the same field of view, one in Ohio and the other, at say Kids Peak or something, or or any other observatory, Arecibo, you name it, I don't care. If two telescopes were looking at the same spot in the sky simultaneously and backing up each other, we'd be popping champagne. With just one telescope, the wow detecting the wow signal, you'd scratch your head and say missed opportunity. Sorry.
Well, you kind of got ahead of me there for a moment. I wanted to start talking about your book, Reinventing SETI: New Directions in the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and the basically what I wanted to get from you is obviously let's talk about your book, where people can find it, when it's out, how long it's been out, what the reaction to it has been so far. But what I wanted to get to was like you have rewritten the ideas behind what SETI does. I assume that means that you must have a critique of how they've been doing things up until this point,
Sure.
and what are you changing? What's the shift to?
Sure. First of all, to answer your first question, my book Reinventing SETI is not out yet. It's being published by Oxford University Press on August 11th, so it'll be out very soon, next month. Don't let the fact that it's being published by Oxford University Press dissuade somebody in your audience from getting it, because it's not written for academics. It's really written for a general audience. It's written with, I think, a lot of humor and fun and so forth. But it's academically rigorous, and in that respect, what's presented there as fact is actually fact. Okay, so that's about the book. Now, one of the and my background isn't in SETI. I served 3 terms as chairman of the board of the SETI Institute. I went on to found a group that. With the purpose of raising $100 million for SETI, when Yuri Milner stepped forward and actually put up $100 million, then I became the only layman serving on his on the advisory board to advise on how that money might be best spent. So I have a lot of background in SETI. But I come from a different perspective. On a day-to-day basis, I'm a businessman, and I try to get into the head or the CPU or the ganglia or whatever of ET and ask the question, what makes best strategic or economic sense from ET's point of view on the best way to communicate with us, assuming that they want to communicate. And the standard paradigm since the inception of SETI has been, since Frank Drake did the first SETI experiment in 1960, has been to look at stars for 10 minutes each, and on the presumption that ET is signaling to us. And I turn that on its head, and I say in my book, and I say that as a strategy makes no damn sense whatsoever. Okay, it's just fraught with problems. Well, one is, I've mentioned earlier, it's dangerous. Okay, number 2 is that there needs to be temporal alignment between the telescope and the receiver telescope and the transmitter. So if ET If we're looking at stars 10 minutes this way, this way, this way, this way, that way, and ET is doing the same thing, they're signaling this way, that way, the other for 10 minutes each, then the chances of us lining up their transmitter or our receiver in the same 10-minute space is essentially close to zero. We'll never find each other.
Right.
Alternatively, if they're trying to transmit to us for 1 billion years or 2 billion years, or however long who's paying their electric bill? Okay, it's a long time to be dedicated to the proposition of sending signals at enormous cost and energy, and an enormous dedication to the proposition. Moreover, they need their own receiver that is at the ready 24/7 for that same billion years or whatever until we, Earth, will receive their signal and decide we're going to return a signal, which we may decide not to do. And they need all this time a huge telescope at the ready looking just at Earth. And multiply that by all the stars that they may be interested in, 1 billion stars, who knows however many. Where are they going to build all this? They don't have enough matter in their solar system to build that many telescopes.
And I guess to piggyback on that and interrupt you for just a second.
Sure, go ahead.
When we're talking about the output of energy to do what we're talking about, in order for us to match that, we would have to be able to update our energy supply.
Oh, it's more profound a problem than that.
And then also, like these probes that you're talking about,
yeah,
how are they being powered? Are these things being, are they leaving their planet on their quest to find us and everything else that's out there? If these things are in the in the internal of the universe and space, are we talking tens of thousands of years that these things are being powered? Or
right. Okay, so let me take the several problems here. Let me try to disentangle some of the problems that you've raised. You've raised very, very interesting, good questions. The first is about the power. There's a power imbalance here, and a true unfairness in the trade, between us. Not only is ET signaling to us in the old paradigm, they're signaling to us all the wisdom, all the Encyclopedia Galactica that they have to send to us. They're signaling to us at enormous energy cost to them. And what are we doing? First of all, they're doing it for 1 billion years. We ourselves need to just listen for maybe 100 years, whatever it takes us to find their signal in that needle in the haystack.
Yeah.
And it takes very, very little energy to listen. I mean, it's a little bit like, to use a rough analogy, if you look at a star, we know how much prodigious energy a star puts out, and all we need to see it is to look at it with our eyeballs or maybe with a telescope. I mean, it's unfair. The sun needs to use that much energy just for us to see it. Okay, in the same way, they're giving us all the wisdom, and we're the ones that are putting nothing out there. So any fair trade between us would dictate that their telescope, their transmitter, should be very small, and our telescopes that are receiving it have to be gargantuan, much larger than anything we've got. And one of the reasons we may not be seeing a signal from ET is because we're simply, they're presuming that fair trade means that they're putting out a weak signal, and we have a humongous telescope that we don't have to pick it up. Okay, that's to one point. To the next point that you've raised is extremely good, and I don't have a terrific answer to it. I wish I did. And that is, a probe needs to be powered somehow. And a probe, as I said, there could be one active probe for every 1,000 dead probes in our solar system that have run out of energy. So what are the energy sources? Well, the obvious one would be solar energy, They can take as much energy from our sun as they please. Um, and then there's various forms of radioactive energy. Um, but most of it, I don't, it would have to be isotopes that are have a very long half lives. Um, so those are the two obvious ones. But they may know of energy sources that we do not know of, and they may be sitting on asteroids mining it for materials that are useful to them and to build out capabilities in situ when they're here. So, but I wish I had a better answer. I honestly don't. But I think it's a valid problem.
When you talk about how realistic, when you talk about these probes and the energy that it would take to get them from their origin to us, you used M3 as a cluster that's, what would you say, 23?
It's M13 and it's about 27,000 light years away.
Okay, so 27,000. Let's use that as an example to get here to Earth, to put a probe or put multiple probes around this planet and gather data from it. Um, like, what would be a realistic timeline for a probe to traverse our neighborhood? Because essentially that's what it is. It's not that far in the big picture. Um, with our current understanding of physics, would it have to have some kind of um, would it be able to go? I'm having trouble trying to put this to words. Would it have to have some kind of an unnatural propulsion, something that would be way beyond what we would understand in order to traverse that distance, or
No,
or could it technically be able to do that just because it was powered and created by an intelligence that might be 3 billion years more advanced than we are?
no. We've already sent interstellar probes ourselves with our crude technology. With 1970s technology, we sent Pioneer and Voyager into interstellar space. And they're continuing at roughly 23 kilometers a second or so. They're going to go basically forever. Um, and getting propelling a probe to its cruising um, velocity is no problem at all. You just launch it from your solar system and send it on its way. Okay, the same way we do. You can use chemical rockets. I doubt they would use something that crude, but you could. Just like we did, and it would sail along. However, when you get to the other side, you need to decelerate, and so you need a propulsion system that can decelerate. It can be a solar sail, um, and uh, by the way, a solar sail is a more likely solution to Avi Loeb's Oumuamua. Maybe it's a discarded solar sail that was decelerating a probe that was being put into our solar system. But the problem with that is if it's tumbling, then how does solar sail then adjust its orbit by that 0.1%? It's useless. The solar sail doesn't work when it's tumbling.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's an aside. Go on.
It was, because I mean, where do
But
you?
a solar sail may be used to. It could be a probe could deploy a solar sail to decelerate
Mhm.
when it gets to the solar system of interest.
When you start talking about these types of these theories and hypothetical things, I mean, I don't think it's not that big of a stretch of the imagination to like start to think in terms of Star Trek and Star Wars, and the things that make more sense to us because we've seen it in a movie. Just to outwardly be able to work out the physics of how things, like in space, is there a I guess maybe you'd call it like a terminal velocity. Is there a speed that an object that is unpropelled can reach and maintain indefinitely? Is that just because of gravity entering and exiting the gravitic forces of other planets? And
You can accelerate an object in space to an arbitrary speed until you get to the light speed. No object can actually attain light speed. No physical object can attain light speed. Um, but the energy would to achieve relativistic velocity is so enormous that it staggers the imagination. And it's not anything that I would postulate, because I think it's counterproductive for ET to send something at relativistic speeds. For one thing, it would explode the minute it hit a micrometeorite, or a piece of dust or whatever in interstellar space. That would be like huge bullets. Uh, and then it has to decelerate when it gets to the other side, and then what's the rush? The Earth isn't going anywhere in astronomical time scales, so there's no reason for ET to achieve large accelerations to get here. But there's no, but the laws of physics do not preclude it. It's just the enormous energy expenditures would be absolutely enormous.
okay, so let's we're creeping up on 90 minutes here. Let's take a minute and make sure everybody knows where the book is going to be available again and when. And then
Well,
and I
the
have
book,
I have a few more questions for you.
sure. Reinventing SETI is available now for pre-order on Amazon. Um, it won't be shipped until August 11th.
In your view, in your educated view, who should take the lead when it comes to crafting the documentation or the protocol for first contact? How do you see that, like in its most amicable form? How do you see that being played?
Okay, so I, uh, I feel that that the first order of business would be for the UN to recognize that there's a problem. Um, that the second then is to organize a committee of experts across multifarious disciplines who need to study the problem and devise contingency planning. Um, it needs to be a well-funded standing organization. And there needs to be, as I said, the work product should be a treaty. Now, I've already drafted a treaty. You can find it in my book. Um, I've also published it in an astronomical journal already, um, but it's a first draft, and I think it's a pretty good draft. It it would grapple with these issues as to what to do on the day after contact. But that group needs to be organized now, not to wait till the moment after contact, when we're all befuddled anyway, when we're just overwhelmed with the fact of it.
Yeah.
But we need to consider this. It may take a decade or two of deep consideration before we come up with a work product, which would be a standing committee to work after the fact of a detection, and a guiding treaty that guides us in how we would react to it. Um, so it's important to do this now before this, because look, let's take this signal from another planet. Let's say I'm again wrong, and I don't have all the wisdom in the world, and it may be that I'm wrong. That ET does send a signal from its own home planet. If they did that, how long are they going to wait for our response? I mean, I know that we move on every 10 minutes. Are they going to also move on for 10 minutes as adjusted by the speed of light? In other words, if they're 100 light years away, then they're going to look at for our return signal 200 years later. In other words, 100 there, 100 back. And after that 200th year, are they going to wait for 10 minutes? 200 years plus 10 minutes, 200 years plus a month, a year, a decade, who knows? So our best strategy is to know what we're going to do now. If we have a response, we are going to respond and make the decision that we're going to respond, to make that decision now. And the moment we get a signal from that other planet, hit the send button as quickly as possible, because the decision will already have been made.
Do you think there are any recognizable front runners to head this, the idea behind this? Are there any nations? Are there any global collectives that?
There are two nations who are front runners in this, and that's of course the United States and China, the two usual suspects. Okay. The United States has, of course, a very vibrant SETI program, or we have a SETI program at Berkeley, at UCLA, at Penn State, and the UK's got one in Oxford. There's robust SETI programs in South Africa and Italy and so on. But the big problem is that the Chinese are now entered the field, and they've done so big time. They've got the largest single dish radio telescope in the world, called the FAST telescope, which is doing SETI. Not only SETI, but it's doing SETI. So we should be in dialogue with the Chinese. It may be that if failing an international treaty, that we should have a bilateral treaty between the United States and China, and that other countries can join. But let me tell you why this is. Let me give you an example of why this is so important. Let's say that I'm correct and that ET's here right now in our own solar system in the form of robotic probes, and one day we get a signal from ET saying, "Well, I've decoded your language, and I'm telling you in English that nice to make your acquaintance, and I've got my we've got the Encyclopedia Galactica I've brought to you. It's in a nice laminated card saying your membership card to the Galactic Club. Come and pick it up. It's all in my in my cargo hold. Come on up and pick it up." Whoa. Are we going to get there first, or are the Chinese, or is it SpaceX and Elon Musk who's going to be the first one to get there? I don't know, but this, and if we get there first and we bring it home we get there first and we bring it back, will the Chinese be incentivized to shoot down our craft, lest we receive a cornucopia of technological knowledge and they're going to lose out on? Are we going to start a war over this? I mean, let's get our act together, guys, and let's do it before this all happens. So that's where my book is actually my idealized reader of this book is a 30-something-year-old congressional staffer. I need the young generation of policymakers to begin to grapple with this and bring forth some planning to the gray heads.
Right. Which that in itself is a job that almost seems insurmountable to get through that.
Well, I would like to be optimistic and hope that this will happen. We could, if there are probes here, they will make contact with us. There's some thinking in the SETI community. David Brin was the first one to bring this up. That it could be that they're just lurking out there, just uploading all of our IP, and with absolutely no intention of giving us anything back in return. I don't buy that. I think, as I've said earlier, that they need us. They need us to be part of the cooperative galactic club to help maintain the galactic internet. Um, and I do believe that they will make contact with us. When, I cannot tell you. If I can tell you that it would be very soon if they're autonomous. In my belief, my personal belief, is that they would make contact with us soon if they're really autonomous. But it could be a millennia or something before we hear from them if they need to report back to a home base and receive further instructions. So and that may be what's going on now.
Do you think if they are here autonomously,
I don't know.
do you think that they would have the ability to interact and intercede with us without having to give back any kind of information to who or whatever sent them to begin with? Do you think they would be that far advanced that they would have the answers to most of the situations and problems that we could pose for them?
I think it's very likely that they are autonomous AI beings, um, and their progenitor may no longer be extant. They could have gone extinct. And this, by the way, the probe hypothesis, completely solves for Drake's L. If your listenership knows what that is, the problem of that Frank Drake posed in his eponymous Drake equation. That the problem with communication is that two civilizations need to coexist. If our civilization only exists for 10,000 years and ET civilization only exists for 10,000 years, the chances that in the 13 billion plus years of the universe that we're both coexisting in the same 10,000 years are negligible.
Yeah.
We'll never see each other. Probes solve that problem. Essentially, once a probe is launched, we've launched Voyager. Voyager's out there. It's gone. Pioneer's gone. New Horizons gone. It's gone into interstellar space. Once they're launched, it's one and done. They're gone. What happens here on Earth? Whether if we blow ourselves up, it's immaterial to the fate of Voyager and Pioneer. They're gone. Same thing with these probes. The probes may belong and have been launched by civilizations that are long extinct.
The probes that you were just speaking about that we have launched that are now currently on their way till Kingdom Come. Is there any contact between Earth and those probes now? Are we still collecting any kind of data? Or
We're still collecting data from Voyager and from New Horizon.
really?
Yeah, I don't believe we're collecting data anymore from Pioneer. Yeah, Voyager is sending back data on the nature of interstellar space, and it can and it's actually was the first uh, spacecraft to pierce the heliosphere, or the actual border between the solar wind and the interstellar medium, and it's giving us actual data on the interstellar medium. Yeah, it's on its last legs. It doesn't have very many more years left before it
How
expires.
many years has that been going?
Since 1970, 73 or 74, it was launched, something like that. 75, I think it was 1975.
That's crazy. Crazy to think that something is still.
Yeah, that's the technology. It's functioning with 1970s technology.
Yeah. John Gertz, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, sir.
Eric, it's been my pleasure as well. Thank you so much.
A lot of great, very interesting conversations. Let's wind this up. What do you think? What's the most? Let's leave the listeners with this. What's the most concerning thing to you now about everything that we have discussed and all of the information that's available in your book that's coming out? What is something that we should most be concerned with and take to heart immediately?
Well, there's a subset of SETI scientists or hangers on that advocate for sending messages to the stars proactively. They argue we haven't heard from ET yet. Why don't we be the first ones to initiate signaling? Um, and most of us in the SETI community, and certainly the preeminent thinkers in the field, think that's a dreadful idea. That's a almost a cult of SETI activists who believe that's a good idea to send signals first. My own view is that I entitle a chapter of my book something like this. I may forget exactly, but I say METI beyond beyond the dangerous to the arrogant, delusional, unethical, unscientific, illegal, quasi-religious, and in case anybody misunderstands where I stand on the subject.
I think that clears it up.
Yeah, it clears it up. Anyway, I could go on for quite some time on why it's a horrible, horrible idea, and I regard it to be very dangerous and very delusional. Um, it assumes from the get go that ET is benevolent. Uh, so, what's the evidence that ET is benevolent? Let me give it to you all right now. Silence, silence,
There it
silence,
is.
silence. Okay, there it is. I've just given you all the evidence. Yeah. There is no evidence. There's no evidence that ET is benign or malicious, or whether your ET and your imagination more reflects Spielberg's beautiful benign ET, yeah, or Close Encounters, or Ridley Scott's Alien is strictly a matter of taste right now. We don't know. We have no idea what ET's intentions are.
With my luck, it will be Ridley Scott's version.
Yeah, but so, and as I said, we're rolling the dice when we respond to ET, we're rolling the dice. Maybe it's a good idea to do it, but it's not something that a few lonely, SETI hangers on have the right to decide for themselves. And all of mankind.
I've not thought about that much, but you make a valid point, and I
and believe me, on that one, I've got many, many more valid points, but I don't think time allows here. So
I've got to agree with you.
And you get a chance to go through it all.
I got to agree with you. Why would you risk waving the flag saying, here we are, when you don't know who's watching?
Absolutely. And we simply don't know. And even when we do make contact with ET, and let us say that I'm correct and their probes are here and they know we're here, and so it's not a question there's no hiding from them. They know we're here. They're watching I Love Lucy or whatever. Hopefully, they're also watching our nightly news, and from that they see we're a wretched species. But hopefully that I Love Lucy will tell them that we've got some sense of humor too. I don't know,
yeah.
But even when that probe that knows we're here and it's pointless for us to hide from them, we still have to be very careful when we do make contact with them what their intentions are. If they want to download some Encyclopedia Galactica, well, be sure, but maybe there's a Trojan horse in there, sure, or they're going to infect our internet with who knows what.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the solutions are, but that's why I say we need a large body of experts to begin to grapple with this.
I don't disagree. At all. John Gertz, thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me. All the best.
Thank you. Good night.